We are talking, of course, about money being a resource, just like any other resource. And once you emotionally detach from the things that money provide, once you start making logical decisions versus non-emotional decisions, it becomes just like any other resource you have to manage. I don't see it as a rand, I don't see it as a currency, it is a resource. So for me, if we don't have it, if we don't look after it, we can't grow our business. It's like you breathe in the morning. You have to breathe every day. You put deodorant because you don't want to smell. That's what money is. So when I look at the bank account every morning, I'm not seeing, oh, my money's gone out. I'm just seeing, okay, that's what I've got. That's what's coming in. I need X, so I need you to come in. So I don't see it as every day. I don't log in every day and get excited with the figures. It's a resource. It needs to be looked after. It needs to grow. You can't just deplete it. You need to keep putting back in. And isn't this interesting, right? Because people get so fucking emotional about something that's entirely a human construct, right? People don't get excited when they open the tap and water comes out. But actually you should be, because it's a pretty big miracle. But yet, if you don't manage that, if you don't make sure that you got to close the tap, you got to make sure that you don't let the water run dry. If you leave the tap open, right, then there's no water. Eventually it will run dry. Now with money though, it's amazing. People see themselves running dry, but they keep spending. And so this is what we really want to encourage people to think about, is that don't think about money as who you are. Don't think about money as what it represents for you. I mean, people get an ego by the fact that they've got more money than other people. That's really sad. People get impressed by other people who've got money. I tell the story often about how I went from driving Aston Martins and crazy sports cars, Range Rovers, all this sort of vehicles, and I went and chose a Jeep Wrangler afterwards because I got tired of people looking at me and going, oh, he's got money. Oh, I can see you've got money because you drive a nice car. But actually there's a lot of people who drive nice cars who can hardly rub 5 cents together. And here is the real thing. You got to stop looking at money as something other than just a pure resource. It is like rain. It's like any natural occurring resource on the planet. If you don't manage it, it will be depleted. If you give it emotional value, you're going to get worked up all the time. If you measure yourself by it, you don't measure yourself by how much water comes out the tap. Why the you measuring yourself by how much money you've got? It's ridiculous. If we lean back into the way you manage business, finances, right? Totally unemotional, except when we come close to overspending even $1, the Penguin gets PMS like you've never seen in your life before. You should see the chats, because guys get all excited that they're trying to justify the expenses, but then they forget all the expenses adding up. So they'll see one purchase one day, 2 purchases the third day, but add the 3, all the purchases together gives you a total of what you're spending. So these guys get carried away. So I need to rein it in and say, okay, great, but it's so far sitting on X, so we need to recover X, not yesterday's purchase, the total. So again, it's a resource.
The reason you are so passionate about this is because you've learned this journey through this path we've walked. You've learned that money is a resource. And if we run out of that resource, we're in deep trouble, right? But yet people are doing this in their personal lives. It is crazy to me that people get to the end of the month and they're figuring out how they're going to put fuel in the car and how they're going to buy bread and milk. How do you lie yourself to get to that position? It is just purely logical. If you can't afford to live in that house, get rid of it. If you can't afford to have dogs and you gotta go into an apartment because you need a house full of dogs, get rid of the dogs. I know it sounds horrible, I know it sounds harsh, but when you're not in a position to have, you got to accept that you're not in a position to have, and you got to be unemotional about it. And unfortunately, people don't want to sacrifice. People don't want to sacrifice because there's emotion, right? But when you treat it like a resource, if you go to the reservoir for water and it's empty, you're not going to become emotional. You're going to go like there's no water. But yet when we get to the reservoir of money, we go, no, we can make debt. It is so frustrating, right? You've got to get down to understand that money is very basic. It's money in, money out. Your life should be lived by one simple definition every single day. Money in, money out, money in, money out. And if you don't curb the amount of money going out versus the money coming in, your personally, business, total will collapse. This is why countries are debt shit. This is why the world's in debt. The entire financial system is about to be put on its ass. Because there is more debt in the system than there is actual money. If you take all the money in the world and you put in a big pile and you put all the debts in the world and put that in a big pile, the debt pile is like this high and the money pile is like this low, we got a serious problem. and people need to understand. Until you start treating money like nothing other than a resource, right? You will lose the emotion of it. You will lose this insanity of spending what you don't have, and you'll start focusing on how to manage that resource. Because the thing for us to survive as human beings, the thing that has allowed us to evolve, is the fact that we've figured out how to do things sustainably. People are not spending sustainably. Let's just be honest. Partly because it's not your fault, right? But partly because at some point, you have to take some accountability and get your finances together.